Oh, Yennefer. Thank you, episode 2, for bringing her into the story. Because, man, hunchback and all, I love her.
If you like talking sci-fi and fantasy, please subscribe. Don't make me beg.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Sporking News Podcast. My name is Scott. Like, share, sub, be great. If not, that's fine too. So we're discussing The Witcher Season 1, Episode 2, 4 Marks. And this is a different one because there is many different things going on here, many different timelines. We have the Yennefer timeline, which I believe takes place 50 years or so before the present timeline, which is Ciri. And then about 20 years before Ciri is the Witcher timeline. So if you haven't caught that yet, spoilers, sorry. So we start with Yennefer in her timeline. There's a couple, a young girl and a young man. They're kind of fooling around at a barn. He gives her some flowers. It's all sweet. And then, the girl's mad that they weren't roses, but whatever. They lose the flowers and they're looking for him. And here's Yennefer. Yennefer is a deformed girl. She has an issue with her jaw. She has a hunchback, and she is trying, she found the flowers for them. And what do they do to thank her? They start tormenting the shit out of her. So she, as she's getting bullied, she's getting picked on and actually physically attacked, she transports herself. And she transports herself into this cave. And in this cave is a gentleman by the name of Istred. Istred is part of the mage group, the Brotherhood. But we find about them later on. Now, he's surprised to see her. She's surprised to see him. And he asks, how did she do it? She doesn't understand what she even did. So this is a moment where he realizes she is using her magic for the very first time. She didn't even know she had it. And he says, I have to send you back because that portal's could be traced. Must send you back before she finds you. And he whisks her back to her home. So then Yennefer is back at the farm, and you see a cart pulling up. And in this cart is a woman by the name of Taisha de Veries, I believe it is. Now, Taisha is a very well put together woman. You could tell that she has some wealth. And Yennefer is covered in mud because she fell in the pig slop because she was trying to feed him, and her father was abusing her verbally, saying she can't do it, this and that. So the woman comes up, sees this happening, and says, how much for the pig? And he goes, 10 marks. And then she says, how much for this beast? Meaning Yennefer. And he says, 6 marks. And she says, 4. Sold. Reason why we got the name of this. So this man, even though the mother's protesting, sells his daughter to Taisha with no questions asked. And she says, I'm not going with you. Well, we find out in the next scene, she did. So we find her in this, I wouldn't say tower, but in this room. There's a bed. There's some other things. There's a mirror, and she's locked in. Taisha locked her in there. Yennefer sees the mirror, sees herself, and sees the deformity, sees the creature she believes that everyone treats her like pretty much, and she punches it. Glass breaks, she picks up the glass, and she decides to take her own life. So now then we jump back to Yennefer. Yennefer's in bed, and Taisha has actually saved her. She lost a lot of blood, but she saved her. Yennefer's like, you should have let me die. And Taisha's like, get dressed, come into the greenhouse, let's go. So we enter the greenhouse, and there's a group of other girls at like little desks. So Taisha's explaining to each one of the girls how their magic works. And she explains to these girls that each one of them had a moment where their magic appeared for the first time. And that's how she found them. You can actually follow and sense magic if you are a magical person. And she explains to them they are conduits of chaos, which chaos, when transformed into, is magic. And each one of them has the power to use magic, and chaos is around them. It's the force they use to create magic. But unless they can learn how to control their chaos, it can actually consume the continent. So she's teaching them how to use balance and control to help them survive, really, because without that, their emotions can take over and the chaos would destroy them and maybe everyone else on the continent. So she gives them their first test, and the first test is to lift a rock without using their hands. And there's a rock and a flower on the table. So she gives them their first test, lift the rock without using your hands. So they start using the incantation. They start saying the magical spell. So one of the girls, Fringilla, after saying the magical spell, was able to do it. But the consequence of that is her hand shriveling up to look really old and deformed, really, really almost like it would be destroyed. And we find our first lessons that when you use chaos, so to use magic, something else has to be drawn from that. So that's why the flower's there. So one of the girls, I believe it's Sabrina, she's able to do it. The flower wilts. She lifts the rocks. A couple other girls. But we see that Yennefer can't do it. And even Taisha says, you lost a lot of blood, but she's really hard on herself. She wants to do it, but she can't do it. So Yennefer ends up running out of the class, and she runs to that cave where Istred is, where they actually meet properly and introduce themselves to each other. So now we're flashing back to the girls. They're partnered up with each other. They're sitting across from each other, and this lesson is to learn to read the other person's mind. So they call it mind transference. What Taisha wants to know is their greatest fear, their partner's greatest fear. So now you see it, it's daylight, they're working on it, but Yennefer has no confidence in herself. So when we see it kind of next, it's nighttime, and she still can't do it, even though we do hear whisperings. And I believe that's to tell us that the other girls are doing it, but Yennefer can't do it. So when Taisha asks her, she actually lies and says what she thinks the girl's biggest fear is. And Taisha says one of the things that I think sticks with Yennefer the most. And she says, it took you 2 weeks to lift the rock. You can't waterbend. You can't do any physical tasks. I know what your greatest fear is. Even if you were a beauty, no one would love you. And that hits Yennefer really hard. So what she does is she runs away and she finds Istred again. And what he does is say, well, why don't you try mind transference with me? And she's able to do it. It's probably because she feels more relaxed with him, not the pressure of all the other girls trying to learn it. Or he also maybe is more open to it. So she's able to smell things that he wants her to smell and this and that. And he says, it's what I wanted you to smell or thought you would like, blah, blah, blah. So now we're back with the girls, Yennefer and the girls, and they're in Tora Lora. And this is one of the most, or if not the most powerful and most potent place for chaos on the continent. And it's off limits to everyone. So we are told that it's only for the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, who are the most ancient mage guild in the north and probably in the continent. We haven't learned that yet, but I'm guessing in the continent. And they allow the women to come here. What they're trying to do is catch lightning in a bottle. And the first couple girls, they're not able to do it. The glass shatters. One gets hurt. And then it's Yennefer's time, and she actually takes a lightning bolt in the chest, is knocked to the ground. So then Sabrina comes up and with ease does it. Of course, Sabrina. I mean, she has a teenage witch's name, wouldn't you think? So Sabrina does it. And this, Taisha kind of, berates Piglet. She keeps calling her Piglet. And what Yennefer does is take the lightning and redirect it at Taisha to try to kill her. And she's able to block it away. After class, Taisha grabs Yennefer and says, some of these magicians or mages, it comes easily to, they ignore, though, their feelings where we are consumed by them. And because of that, we can be very powerful mages, but we can also lose control and be very dangerous to ourselves and everyone around us. So then we're back with Yennefer, and Yennefer's with Istred saying that I'm a terrible mage. They're sending me home. We're never going to see each other again. And he's like, well, maybe we could find a way around that. And she says something cute about one of those portal hole thingies. And he explains how it's an ancient magic, the portholes, and that the elves taught the humans. So we find out here with a little bit of a history lesson that the humans learned all their magic, learned how to control chaos from the elves. And then once they learned all that magic, they slaughtered the elves so that they could say the magic was always theirs and the elves didn't teach them. Doesn't really make sense, but I understand that that's a part of this world. So I will believe it because it is in this world. But yeah, so they kill all the elves. And they say the magic has always been humans, and they pretty much control now the continent because of that. They call this moment the cleansing, where the humans destroy the elves to take their power. Now, this is where we find out that Yennefer's real father, not the man that sold her real father was a half an elf that was killed during this time. And that makes her a quarter an elf. And that's why she believes she's twisted and deformed, which I don't think is true, but that's what she believes. So she believes, maybe Taisha was right. No one will ever love me, even if I was a beauty. But that's her deepest fear. Her deepest fear is that what I believe is that even if she was beautiful, she's not good on the inside. And Estrid does kiss her and wants to make her know that she is more beautiful on the inside than out, and it doesn't matter to him. Well, we find out both of them were kind of playing each other. Yennefer goes back to Taisha and has that flower because it took a flower to open up the portal. He actually taught her how to open up the portal. The flower, which is known as fenowed, is only grows where the blood of elfin or elder or an elf fell. So during that massacre, wherever blood fell, this flower would actually grow, and they use that flower to control those portholes and open it. She says the incantation once and is able to do it, where he is amazed by that. And this is where we find out that her father actually was half elf. That's why it comes easier to her. She's a quarter elf. He was killed on that night of cleansing, but she believes because she's quarter elf that she's deformed, which I doubt. And also that no one will ever love her because she's ugly, which also that's not the truth. If she was a beauty, she truly believes no one would love her because she's not good on the inside. She does not believe in herself. He, though, as in Istrid, tells her, gives her a hug, gives her a kiss. He's falling for her. Now we find out that this was both of them a test. Taisha tested Yennefer to get information or get something from Istrid, which she did, that flower. And at that moment, she doesn't call her Piglet anymore. She calls her Yennefer. So she's starting to get respect, and you could see that means a lot to her. She wants power. Next, we see Istrid speaking to Strigamore, and he needed to get something from the girl, and he didn't want to say anything, but he finally tells Strigamore that she's a quarter elf, which is used against her down the road. In the last scene with Yennefer, she's sitting there in her bedroom waiting to see if she gets chosen to ascend. Now, all through this episode, they talk about ascending to the next level, becoming mages, pretty much graduating from Hogwarts. So she doesn't get picked. She's really ticked off. She creates one of those portals with the flower, and she sees the girls around a pool with Taisha, and Taisha tells them that, you're about to ascend, say this incantation, and each one of them turns them into eels. And then she's like, Yennefer, come here. And she explains to Yennefer that not everyone's made to ascend. And that even though they were transformed into eels, they still have their ability and their magic, the chaos within them. They are still conduits, but they can't use it. So she has Yennefer, as a last test, push her friends, Sabrina and the girls, into the pool. And that pool is a source of magic, not only for them there, but I think others can tap into it. And she does. She pushes them each in there, and we find out that Yennefer now is going to ascend to the next level. And they reiterate what they said at the beginning with the first test of the stone lifting, that best thing sometimes a flower can do is die. And that's what these girls technically didn't, but they're dead. They are no longer themselves, and they're being used by these people to power up their chaos, which Yennefer has no issue with. So we're back with Suri in the present. Suri, we find her still in the woods alone. She tries to muddy her hair and darken it, hoping that changing her blonde hair, if the troops find her that are after her, she might be able to, skate away from them and not be seen. We see a young man with a hat on, kind of watching her, and he actually befriends her because she's about to eat some red berries, and he tells her, without saying, because he doesn't talk at first, that it would kill her. He offers her some rat, and she's like, no, I won't eat that. That's gross, because she still is a princess. I believe she ends up eating some. She explains to us that it's been 3 days since the sack of Centra, and that she's been supposed to be going towards something, but really she feels like she's running away from the wing helmet guy, and she doesn't know what to do. And then she gives the boy, who's been, pretty much saved her, one of her gloves, where you could tell he was really touched by this. And at the very end, they kind of see, she hears soldiers and realizes it's a Centra camp. She runs to it. The boy leaves her. So now we're back with Suri. She's in the Centra camp. She sees a line of people, but she sees a tent with food. She goes right for the food. She grabs a bowl, and the lady's like, get out, Colton line, get in the back. And she's like, well, the queen, gave all this food. And the woman's like, oh, bloody hell, wish she was dead, rotten hell, or something like that. And this is where Suri's realizing she has been, pampered. She has been isolated from really how people must feel about her grandmother. Because to her grandmother was the greatest person on earth. But these peasants, what has her grandmother really done? War, bring death to them. She seems to be the type, well, we don't know it yet, but later down we see that she is a warmonger. So, yes, these people can't stand her, and Yennefer's starting to realize this. And a boy actually grabs her because what she's wearing, and the cloak that she's wearing turns out to be that boy's dad's work. And the father died, but because she's wearing that, they think, she must be from some type of money. So let's take her on. So they're still in this class separation. And we meet this kid's mother, and the mother is very arrogant about, doesn't like the queen either, but she's we must stick together because, wealthy sticks with wealthy. And they have a little person that serves them. And the mother makes the little person take his boots off because he has the same size feet as Suri, and give her his shoes, which you could tell was not what he wanted to do. So they're still trying to live their life outside of their city being destroyed. But Yennefer feels safe for the first time in a while. Now we're back with Ciri again, and Nilfgaard is attacking. It's chaos. She was asleep. She wakes up to just mayhem. And we see that the mother and the son and all the people are trying, one of the sons are trying to get like their property and stuff. And it's like, we must go. We got to, pack up. And the mother yells at the little person, you stupid fool, for dropping something. He picks up a knife and murders the hell out of her, showing that the breakdown of society, every man for themselves. You better, if you weren't nice to people, you're going to be screwed. Yennefer sees the little boy with the hat on that helped her out first. And he's like, helps her escape. She sees the boy that actually saved her from the group where she was cutting in line. He's dead. And they run away into the dark. And Nilfgaard does attack, but they don't find her. We do find out that the boy is an elf at this moment. His hat falls out. He has pointy ears. He introduces himself, and they go off on their next adventure. So we start out with Jasker. He's a bard, and he's singing in a tavern. He's singing a song, and when he finishes, it's a comical one. Everyone's booing. Everyone's throwing stuff at him, except for one person, who is Gerald. So he goes over to Gerald. He says that, you weren't booing. Give me your honest review. And Gerald says, the monsters in your song aren't real. And he realizes from that, oh, wow, he is a witcher. He realizes that because of his hair, but also because he carries two swords. Now, witchers, I don't know if I said it in the first review, witchers carry two blades. One is made of just your normal steel for mundane killing animals, people. The other one is made of pure silver to kill monsters, because that's the only thing that will hurt a monster at some time. Well, depending on the monster, but it will kill monsters, is silver. So the town realizes now that he's a witcher, and they ask him to kill a devil that is stealing all their grain. And they're willing to pay him, so he takes the job, and Jasker follows him because he's like, look, you're right, I don't know much, but if I follow you and I'm a companion with you, I will make you famous. I can, wash away the name, the Butcher of Blaviken, which you could tell Geralt hates. And he's like, this is the only way I can make it. We'll help each other. So through the rest of the thing, he really doesn't want him following him, but, Geralt allows it. And when he does talk about the Butcher of Blaviken part, he turns around and punches him in the stomach and drops Geralt. When Jasker finished talking about the Butcher of Blaviken, Geralt turns around and drops him with a stomach punch. Pretty funny. So now we see Geralt and Jasker, and they are at, I think it's called Dol Blathanen, and it is the Valley of the Flowers. And we hear from Jasker said that the elves gave this land to the humans, and then they moved to their palaces of gold, never to be seen again in the mountains. You see a look from Geralt. We come to later find out that this isn't true. But in the woods, Jasker sees something with horns, and he's like, it is a devil, it is a devil. And he gets struck with a metal ball from a sling, knocked out. So the devil attacks and takes on Geralt, but Geralt overpowers him and realizes that the devil is speaking. Now, this devil turns out to be a Sylvan, and Sylvans are like a half goat, half human, so it's a humanoid, and that he is not stupid. He can speak, and one of Geralt's core beliefs is that if it is an intelligent creature and not just a monster, and it's not trying to be bad, or at least if it's intelligent, he will learn first if it's good or bad, and he will not kill an intelligent species. We find out, though, that his name is Torque. And then right before, Geralt's right after Geralt's explaining to him, well, I won't kill you, but you need to leave here forever, he gets knocked out. So now we're back with Geralt and Jasker. They are tied up and they're in a cave. And this is just your regular run-of-the-mill cave. And Jasker realizes that the elves do not have golden palaces. They're living in caves. And we meet Viva Vandril. He is the king of the elves. And he gives you a little bit more history on what happened between humans and the elves. He says, we helped the humans, and, what they did, they were starving, so we tried to help them out. And the humans ended up attacking us, slaughtering our people, and we had to, they took our land and we had to run back into the mountains. We find out that Torque was stealing the food for the elves. And after going back and forth a little bit with Geralt, the king feels that he needs to kill them, because if the humans find out that Torque has been doing this for the elves, it gives them an excuse to attack him. Also, his pride does not want to admit that they have to do that. But Torque stands up for Geralt and says, he could have killed me, but he was going to let me go. He is not a human. He's one of us. And in reality, he is no longer a human. He hasn't been a human for a long time. He is a mutant. He is one of them. And it looks like the king's going to kill him, but we fade to black. So now on the next scene, we see Geralt and Jasker, and they actually were let free. The Bard is creating one of the more popular songs of the series, and really, but he's telling a lie. He's saying that, the Witcher beat up the elves and had to win their freedom. And when, Geralt says to him, well, you said to the elves, if they let us go, you would only speak the truth about them. He said, truth doesn't pay. Truth doesn't make you famous. Truth isn't what people want to hear. And it is the truth. And they ride off into the sunset while he's singing his song. Okay, so that was The Witcher, episode 2. I'm sorry if that was a long review, but there was a lot to unpack in that one. So tell me what you thought about the episode. Tell me if you like this type of review. If it's too long, let me know. I'd like to get people actually watching more of my videos, so I really can use your advice. Leave a comment down below. And remember, if they're calling your names, they've already lost the war. Have a great day, everybody.